Our last talk of the day is on the power of big data and AI to create predictive user profile by Mary S. Smith, CIO of Data 360. Mary is the CIO of Data 360. She has also been a speaker, presenter, and produced curriculum for over 10,000 elementary, middle, high school, college students, and workers online and in person about coding, career development, corporate data analytics, data science, and technology development. With Harvard Innovation Hub, the University of Southern California, University of California, Berkeley, and UCLA. Data 360 helps non-technical business owners establish, grow, and optimize their communities using our big data, AI, and machine learning services, which can save up to 90% of operational costs. Just one reminder, please make sure to click on the Q&A sub-session button at the end of this talk in order to attend the live Q&A session. And now I'll hand it off to Mary.
Hi, my name is Marie, and this is the power of big data and AI to create predictive transactional profiles. I'm the CIO and co-founder of Data 360, and we're doing this presentation today for the CXO Insights of ValleyML AI Expo. So thanks for coming. So as you may or may not know, the world is generating now 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every single day. And that's a stat by IBM. And so there are negative and positive aspects to all this data. While data can be seen as a positive, it also presents some challenges. With so much data available, it can be difficult to sift through everything and find out what's relevant. And additionally, businesses must be careful not to be overwhelmed by data and lose sight of their goals, right? And this is happening all the time. The benefits of technology through the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning far outweigh these negatives. So since COVID-19 over the last few years, we've moved away from these one-on-one interactions in the office, in meetings and conferences, and towards what's called a many-to-many paradigm, which means that we're working with many people through the same mechanism, which may be like a Zoom call or a collaborative system or a virtual environment or even the metaverse. And so the internet's given rise to these new classes of information between businesses and their employees and internal stakeholders and customers. So you're familiar with the Google and Facebook era. Some of you are still in that era, but many are on to another era. So the big data era really started with Google and Facebook and now has evolved into a widely applicable big data, and AI systems that can push your organization to being steps ahead of the game, right? So right now you may be in the game, but you may not be ahead of the game. So let's go ahead and get you off the bench and into the field. The data-driven enterprise is one way that is putting AI and machine learning at its core, right? And so this is probably not new information to you, or you've heard of it before somewhere, but the difference is you want to make sure that you actually have a holistic view of data and AI. It's not just a project, it's not just a silo, it's not just something you're experimenting with, but it's about moving it to the center of your business, right? Which is a big step. So right now, this is the way you get the competitive edge, right? So everything's hyper competitive. Everything's built on these 24-hour, 48-hour micro cycles for things to take off, go viral, things to be understood by people, right? Everybody's just reading the headlines of the email. So you have to be sensitive and build infrastructure towards that type of competition, right? We call it hyper competitive. Predictive transactional profiles is one very powerful way to be ahead of your competitors and to also have that edge, right? The hyper competitive edge. So companies like Data 360 were experiencing a big rise in demand for these kind of profiles. You can see global artificial intelligence platforms market from 2021 to 2025 is expected to grow about 35%. It's expected to be a growth difference of about $17.29 billion. And the market is concentrated by a small number of players, including Data 360. And so one of the key drivers of the market is that there is, really just a big demand for this because everybody is recognizing that this hyper competitive market, this way to be ahead of the competition, to have the edge, needs a specific framework in their business to be successful. So we work with many of the main players. We work with Google, we work with Microsoft, and of course, we work with AWS. So most of this market is also in North America, right? So this is about us. This is about us in particularly in the United States and Canada, growing using artificial intelligence. And there's two different kinds of markets that are growing. One which is on-premise, and the other is cloud-based. With Data 360, we're a cloud-based solution. So what can predictive transactional profiles be, right? They can improve customer satisfaction. They can improve customer loyalty. They can improve overall business performance. They can reduce waste. They can increase production in supply chains. They can create more profit, and they can generate operational efficiencies. That's just several of dozens of ways that predictive transactional profiles can be used. What's the example of a predictive transactional profile, right? So it's usually, the stuff you see, you normally have, right? Identification information, demographic information, but there's so much more. And the first premise you need to understand is that everyone is a customer in a predictive transactional profile environment, right? So customers include clients, employees, partners, suppliers, referrers, vendors, distributors, wholesalers, right? All of these are your customers, and you need to serve them all much more intelligently and intentionally to be able to benefit from a AI-based system with predictive transactional profiles. So what else is included? Social graphs, right? So we're used to tracking on social media, right? But that's a regular track data field. It's not something we just do happenstance on the weekends or at night or whenever we receive a DM. This is about harnessing the power of those platforms once and for all and integrating them into a meaningful workflow for your business. And there are many different recipes that we have at Data 360 for that. There are also interest graphs. So of all of your external interest graphs of all of your internal and external contexts, which you can get from Data 360 or other firms, right? And interest graphs don't just mean consumer interest, they also mean focus, right? Or industry, or discipline, right? Of the object or the entity that you're tracking, whether it's a person, it's an organization, it's a government, it's an initiative, it's a project. We're tracking what the focus or interest is of that entity, the primary interest. The third thing we're doing is we're tracking transactional graphs, right? So, of course, everybody's tracking transactional graphs. That's normal. But we don't just track your records with that person. We also track second and third party records with other people, right? In other environments. And so in order to do that, you have to have special licenses. You have to have special, with most of these actually, to do it in a robust way, you have to have special licenses and processes and be vetted and all that fun stuff, and not violate certain boundaries and rate limits. So, doing this requires a professional team, but once you have it in place, it's very powerful. The fourth one is societal graphs. So where and how that entity fits into society relative to your goal becomes important, and that adds another metric onto how things can work. Personality graphs are also important because it gives you a lens on how that person processes information. So with personality graphs, we use the DISC system, and that helps you just kind of see the purview, the personal um, perspective that they're coming from. So with predictive transactions, basically it's adding systems of intelligence to your system, to your ecosystem, which you may already have, right? With these systems, you're adding to systems of record, systems of engagement, right, which is a lot of social media, customer experience, systems of things, right? So we're now getting to the age of IoT and 5G, things like that. And then systems of intelligence are really critical to being able to make sure that there is an appropriate tracking of this transactional information, this predictive transactional information, right? So some of it's customer analytics, you see emotional intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and workforce optimization, right? So that goes back to the fact that there is every single kind of constituent in the system. It's not just about the customer, it's also about your employees, uh, your suppliers, your vendors, right? Everybody working in this joint effort to improve customer experience, but also to improve many other things, right? So the goal is to improve your overall business and your interaction between all the main constituencies of your business. So making sure you have that along with the lens of predictive transactions, right? So we're talking about what can happen next, what is likely to happen next, what is appropriate to happen next, what might be recommended to happen next, right? Those are all types of predictive transactions. So all this data and all these systems can be developed, found, and or purchased with minimal interaction with the target contact safely with robust risk and privacy management. So there's no need to panic and think that this can't be handled without a lot of interaction with the other person, right? There are a lot of systems and records that surround that person that enable you to automate a lot of things. And of course, you will always, 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 we always say, you know, AI is not a monolith. It's not perfect. So you want to make sure to have human beings both checking the records and making sure everything makes sense. And you also want to always be in permission and collaborate with your target. You don't want to be working around them without their permission. So you want to be able to say, this is going to require minimal effort to you, but I'm asking, would you like to join this effort? Right. And have alternatives for the people that don't want to join the effort, and making sure that you have a way to interact with them that makes the most sense, right? And of course, through the FAQs, I can answer more questions about how to deal with different levels of cooperation, right? Predictive transactional profiles can be applied to many industries. So it can be applied to healthcare, education, insurance, transportation, media and entertainment, retail, consumer packaged goods, and of course, technology. All of those are many industries that we can do, and there's many more. The where it gets a little bit more difficult is in other processes, such as more robotics or more in terms of manufacturing, things like that. So this is not a system for process automation as much as it is a system for intelligently managing processes. So just a slight difference between the two, but an important difference because RPA is a different field than predictive transactions. So some use cases on how we have helped our clients with predictive transactional cases. We've done product and service development by augmenting or replacing focus groups. We've evolved from A/B testing to a robust multivariate testing, meaning that you can change multiple variates at the same time when you're testing out a marketing campaign or sales campaign or any kind of communications. We've also combined customer CRM or database information with interest in social graphs to recommend new product and service matches, especially, this is especially important for retail, right? And being able to make those predictions. And then here are some examples of how Data 360 helps its clients with predictive transactional profiles. So we can use Google Maps data to determine product or service recommendations. We can create virtual assistants to onboard clients for B2B systems that are more robust than a SaaS click by click or a chatbot, for example. We also use a matrix of business processes, technology, which is AI, machine learning, big data, and interaction formats to use predictive transactional profiles inside of the customer journey, the employee journey, the contractor journey, the vendor journey, the risk management journey, finance journey, CRM journey, ERP journey, and the data management journey. So each of these are different recipes, and it forms a matrix with these 4 areas so that we can make clear decisions on where the predictive transactional profiles will be appropriate and when will they be rendered and what processes are human and what processes are data-driven, what processes are based on a format of delivery. So for example, an in-person interview or a phone call or a clicking around or a webinar. Those are interaction formats, and business processes are based on the workflow of your operations. So we have tools to manage all of those so that a lot of this creation process becomes extremely simplified. It's not so much about an engineer sitting in a closet, hoping for the best and then presenting it to you, and then you not understanding it as a business user. This is very much about collaborating with you as a business user so that it's programmed specifically for your organization's goals and objectives, and it's programmed towards profitability. We also use these in different areas in our enterprise and government services. So smart recruiting, cybersecurity, digital front door, facilities management, marketing automation, customer experience, education innovation, demand generation, CRM, ERM, ERP, sales enablement, embedded systems, or smart integration. So these are, again, recipes in our books, in our operations that we can use in order to develop these systems for you. So, you know, the biggest thing we do is we figure out what goals you have. And then once we look at the goals that you have, we can start to look at all these different areas and see where your goals fit and what recipe will make sense for you. And if you want to learn more about us, you can contact us at support@data360.solutions, on Twitter at Data360Me, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Data360 Solutions. Thank you so much, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Okay, let me start off by asking, how do I get started implementing this practice? If I want to do it myself, where should I start?
Well, the biggest thing we always counsel our clients to start with is their goals. So looking at, you know, what are the goals you want to accomplish in your with your stakeholders? You know, what kind of stakeholders are you looking to develop systems for? Is the number one thing. And then what is your first immediate goal? Is it a revenue goal? Is it a engagement goal? Is it a purchase goal or any other kind of transaction? That's what we're looking to set up the parameters for in terms of making sure that when we're looking for prediction, we're looking for it around a specific objective with a specific set of people.
So for people, what type of hires do you need to consider?
Say that one more time.
What type of hires do I need to
Hires.
consider? Yeah.
Yeah. So it resembles a lot of the same with any digital ecosystem. You need engineers, you need project managers, you need account managers, people to help, or I should say, sort of the people, right? The people who interface and communicate on behalf of the project, whatever you may call them. And really, the final thing is you really need someone with a basic understanding of data, who's very data literate, and someone who can understand how to form a schema to measure the goals, the objectives, the people, the activities, the transactions they need to happen. So, someone with very advanced Excel skills could learn. Someone who is more of a data scientist could learn. Someone who's more involved with business intelligence can learn. Someone who knows analytics. All of those skills are applicable and can be translated to creating predictive systems.
Is it possible to track changes in data profiles? How do you track those changes?
Yeah, so much like any service-based architecture, you can break down data into components with data ops. You can, as profiles get bigger or things change, you can assign different processing structures to the data. So you can make different databases, data lakes, data structures, temporary data structures, cache-based structures. There are many different systems that you can deploy, just like any other kind of software, standard software ops. The difference is you're looking at data components and data systems, data add-ons, cloud-based data systems, data factory, Databricks, so many of data systems that are out there. We like Trifacta to process data. And you have your hot storage, your cold storage, your archival storage. So all those things come into play just as any other software system. It's just based on, it'd be more based on a goal-based system, a specific paradigm for the prediction versus just a general software workflow.
Going back to the data you just mentioned, actually, how much data is available and how do you help mine the data? So
Yeah.
How much data do we have and how your platform and system help mine it?
Yeah, in third-party systems, there are easily, we've estimated from 50,000 to 100,000 APIs at any given time. And most of those are harnessed through, connecting those APIs to a storage, making a query, capturing that data, and doing it on regular intervals, whether you're trying to keep up with the Twitter dodecahose, which I don't think many people do keep up with that, or you're trying to keep up with something much slower, like the New York Times API, right? It's very slow. It's all a matter of finding the schema to capture, or I should say, creating a schema to capture the data effectively that you're looking to examine so that you can build out the hypothesis for the prediction. Sometimes we actually have systems where it does not completely depend on regression, where you don't have to look at past transactions to predict the future. You can look on more behavioral trends. So we with Data 360, we really specialize in behavioral analysis and behavioral tracking to make predictive analysis and prescriptive analysis, not just regression. So sometimes, we'll just look at a log of activity, a log of words used, a log of software used, a log of just any kind of transaction that the user has made not just a monetary transaction, but any kind of information exchange or information query or information generation that a user does. And that helps us understand that user's behavior so that predictions can be made.
Is there a limit to the number of transactions you can analyze, or uh, how long does it take for the predictive profile to get set up and ready?
It can actually be pretty fast, depending on how finite the goal is. So we encourage our clients to sort of crawl, walk, and run. So we encourage small goals to see the objectives get met, and then go on to bigger goals. But typically, it can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to sort of get an overall system set up and optimized so that it's running properly. It depends on how much a given organization wants to get into the grimy details of building out the system and building out the data and the content and the workflow. But generally, it can go very, very fast. It can even be as fast as a month, 30 days. It can be, I would say on average, because most of our clients want to collaborate and have input and understand more about the systems, it will take like 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. One last question about the topic of very important topic of security. How do you secure all of this data once you process it?
Yeah, so you do have to put together a security operation for it. And there has to be, we recommend with larger operations, for example, that you have more control over proprietary data versus like third-party data or data that's generated in some generic system. There are many different paradigms, just like software ops, data ops has many different types of things that need to be considered. Some of the more interesting things with security are between software that you use. Sometimes software will share or store data that is not necessarily made obvious to the users of that system. And you need to track where that data goes and what happens to that data, because regardless, you're liable, right, for that system in your organization. So a lot of times, and this happens every day, it's actually very common, many companies have 20, 30 systems where they're generating data, where they're using it in their operations. There's a lot of metadata that's developed. But there's also a lot of data that's sort of hidden and stored by that piece of software that would be considered a privacy issue or considered a organizational issue, but the company is not aware that that data is leaking to third parties.
Right.
And so, there are some really great organizations that we work with that can help troubleshoot some of these things, because data privacy is not getting any looser, right? It's getting more complicated, and there's a lot of laws that are coming out, especially with artificial intelligence in the EU and many other systems, and other states in the United States are starting to develop more laws. So we have to be very careful in making sure that whatever we put together in this ecosystem for data and for predictions and for AI is we know exactly where the inputs and outputs are, what's being stored, what's being shared. And so that's a lot of the beginnings of the security practice. And then it's just, how do you put together different components to mitigate that risk?
Yeah, thank you, Mary. We're already past time. Thank you very much for the talk and joining us for the live Q&A.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sharif.